Watauga Arts Council with your host, Cherry Johnson, serving arts in Watauga County for more than 30 years.
Hi, I'm Cherry Johnson, Watauga County Arts Council, and we have some amazing work here with us today again. We've got such great artists in Watauga County, and I got one of them with me today. This is Wayne Allen. You've met Wayne before if you've been watching these spots. Wayne's been on here once before with me, talking about wood carving, and we're taking it to another level because you're exhibiting.
That's right.
As part of the Watauga Wood Carvers group, right?
That's correct.
And you guys meet regularly?
Meet every Tuesday at the Western Watauga Community Center. And we're always open to new members, anyone who has some experience carving and wants to get back into it. And if you're a beginner, that's great because we give individualized training for anybody who's interested in taking up wood carving. And so, it's a fun art.
So I come into this for the first time, and let's say I've never carved. What do you give me, or what do you have me do?
Well, first of all, we give you a safety glove.
Good point.
and a thumb guard, and we show you a carving knife. And we normally would start you off carving something relatively simple. And for that purpose, we're usually talking about carving in the round because that's what you would carve something like this cowboy with just a knife. And depending on how much of a collector you are, you can collect a lot of knives or a lot of small chisels and gouges. But a figure like this is typically carved with just a knife. And
now, what kind of wood would you be using the first time?
On most occasions, we use basswood. And the reason for that is it holds detail fairly well and it's fairly easy to cut, even though it's considered a hardwood. You get into oak and something like that, and you find you have a real job on your hands. Number one, keeping your tools sharp, but number two, just carving through it. And it would probably take, I would guess, probably 3 times or 4 times as long to carve something like that out of oak than out of basswood. Basswood, some of it can be very hard too. There's different densities in it, but usually it carves relatively easy compared to something like, I would say, oak or maple or cherry.
So if I came to your wood carvers club the first time and you gave me this piece of basswood and I started working on it, how long does it typically take a beginner to kind of get something they can recognize?
Well, I would say to reach that stage, probably 3 sessions.
Okay. Oh, not that long.
No, it really doesn't. It really doesn't take that long. Now, it depends on the individual, how confident they are, how many mistakes they make along the way.
Sure.
We all make mistakes. And I always say that, people always say, worry about cutting themselves, and I always say that if you meet a wood carver who says they've never cut themselves in 20 years of wood carving, I'll tell you there's a liar. You can put that away.
So expect a little nick here or there.
Well, it just happens. I do it myself, and I'm sure maybe there are people who never have, but and so we try to prepare for those contingencies by having band-aids handy, but that's really a rare thing. It really is, and because we do stress safety, we want you to be careful when you are carving. It really messes up the carving. You get blood all over, so you don't really want to do that.
The stain of wood.
And the only reason I bring that up is because some people are afraid of, I'll cut myself. And well, yeah, you do, but
it's not bad.
You're peeling something in the kitchen, and you'll probably cut yourself at some point in life. So it's not a major thing.
Now, is there a set thing that you usually start a beginner carving?
Well, we actually, in the recent past, we've started them with a mailbox, which is, a pretty, you think about it, there's probably not that much carving into it, but it really, somebody who carves that has probably, by that time, used all the typical carving strokes that you use in carving and had to deal with corners and indentations and things like that. It seems to be a pretty good learning tool, but actually we leave it up to the person. If they want to carve something else, we'll work with them to carve something else.
Now, is that how you got started? You just walked into a club meeting?
That's how I get started, but I actually get started by coming to North Carolina on vacation 40 years ago and seeing some wood carvings in this area. And it just was something I became interested in. But then it took me until I retired about 6 years ago to actually start. But how I actually started was I spent half the year in Melbourne, Florida, and we have a large club there, and I read about them in the newspaper, and I went to the club meeting one day, and they said, welcome, and they got me started, and been doing it ever since.
Wow. Now, you mentioned to me a while ago that you've been carrying this piece of wood around for years. What was this about?
Actually, again, I was on a vacation trip up to North Carolina, and a neighbor from Florida, I was in Miami at that time, had cut down a walnut tree, and he gave me a chunk of walnut. And I literally carried that from house to house as I moved over the years. And I still have it, although I finally got around, it dried out so much.
Have you carved this thing yet?
No, I haven't carved it. But one of these days I'll figure out what to carve out of it, and I'll carve it. But I always knew I wanted to do it. And we do have some people in the club that have been doing it for many years. And they're certainly more skilled than I am. But here's some examples of things that I've carved, which can show you that you can, in a relatively short period of time, learn to carve. It's one of those arts or crafts, depending on how you want to define it, it's like any subject in that area. Practice helps a lot, but there's all kinds of books, there's all kinds of patterns. You can even buy blanks to carve something like this.
Really?
And what that means is when you purchase a blank, they have taken a bandsaw and cut out the basic shape. And so it's relatively easy in comparison to get to this point as compared to starting off with a rectangular block of wood.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. And the reason that I'm coming to this question is because of the piece right in the very front here. I've heard artists say, especially stone carvers and people like that, that they sort of look at a stone until they figure out what's inside that stone, and then they basically free it. You know what I'm saying? Does wood carving work the same way? Do you kind of get a feel for what the piece is supposed to be, or do you go at it with, I'm going to make a piece of this, and I'm going to make a cowboy, or I'm going to make a bear, or whatever I'm going to make?
We do both. The cowboy was done using I believe I had a pattern that I found in a book, and I had traced it out, cut it out on a bandsaw, and I knew that's what I was going to carve when I started with it. The same with what we call relief carving.
Right.
Relief carving is carving on a flat, plane surface, and you basically are creating a picture when you carve, and you can either paint it, as I've done here, or you can leave it natural when you finish it. Now, this heron is what we call a stylized wood carving, and
I love that piece.
This
That's so cool.
This is a piece which you would look at and say, what does the shape of this wood seem to indicate to you? What can you carve on that to leave the natural wood and driftwood? People often use driftwood for this. And then when you carve parts of it, you polish it and carve it to shape.
So this is the original, pretty much the original wood that was exposed on the outside,
absolutely
right?
is. That's right.
And then this part, the part of this brown toned, you have carved and very, very smoothly sanded and finished and polished. And,
that's correct.
You know.
And the same thing with the base. I think the base is mesquite wood, and I forget what this top piece is. And I actually did this on a course with a nationally known wood carver, and he's from the Southwest, and he climbs through the mountains out there and gets this wood, and that's pretty much all he does is this type of what we call stylized carving. It's the first time I'd done a piece like this, and you know, I have to say I like it too.
So this piece of wood, you would not have looked at it and gone, oh, okay, that's a snowman, because it's not a snowman. You know, it's got a distinct shape to it that has its own character. You know,
the whole idea with this type of carving is to have a piece of wood, and well, you could make a snowman out of it if you wanted to cut a piece off and just
whack it up.
Yeah, whack it up. The whole idea is to use the natural indentations and texture of the wood in your final piece.
That is really cool.
You know, there are people I know who actually frequent the Outer Banks of North Carolina here and down South Carolina, and have people collect driftwood for them and produce the same type of carvings.
That's really, really neat. So this is one of the all of these are examples of some of the work that your group is going to be displaying during the month of July.
That's correct.
They have the exhibit in the Open Door Gallery, which if you come into Blue Ridge Art Space, walk through the walls of fame, through where we've acknowledged all the people that have helped us do the project, into the main gallery and take a left into the Open Door Gallery, which is where your exhibit's going to be located. And you're showcasing the work of you and some other members of the club.
Well, myself and Benny Robinson.
You and Benny are soloing together.
We are. The rest of the members of the club, it's a small club, and they just aren't that experienced. They didn't feel they wanted to do it.
And so what you're trying to do is grow the club.
We actually are. Yeah. It's very interesting because the club up here, on a given meeting, will have 4, 5, 6 people max. And then my club in Florida during the winter, it swells to over 50 people.
Wow.
We hardly have room anymore for carvers.
Wow.
It's grown so. But it just becomes, for the mountains in particular, I think it just naturally goes with this area. There is so much wood, number one, and it's the type of thing that lends itself to the local area.
Yeah.
The animals you could carve, the caricatures you can carve of people that might be in the history books here, Daniel Boone or whatever you want, woodsman, that kind of thing. And of course, this is more of a tropical bird, this heron, but and so you can carve anything. It's totally up to you.
Yeah, I think sometimes we want to think of wood carving as a mountain thing, but it's really not. It's everywhere in the world.
It really has a very interesting history. If you've seen pictures or you've had the opportunity to go in the churches in England and Europe, all that fancy altar work you see quite often is wood carving.
Hand carved, yeah.
And in fact, the same in England, they use what they call lime wood, which is the same thing as the basswood that I was talking about here. And it's an ancient craft, and I can just think of the places I've seen it in New Zealand, in China, Alaska, really all over the world. Wood carving at one time or another was done, and I know there's a piece in the Smithsonian Institution that was found in an Indian mound down in Naples, Florida. I can't just recall exactly what it was, but I know, a deer's head. And I've seen pictures of it in magazines and books. I haven't actually seen the piece. And so it goes back through all cultures, and it's something that man has done, man and woman, since time immemorial, as far as I know, everywhere in the world. And you see a lot of African sculptures these days.
Yes.
And so it's something that has broad interest. Now, unfortunately, it's not as durable as some things like marble. So if there's been a lot of invasions and natural disasters, a lot of wood carving gets lost over time. But some pieces have survived. And there are pieces in Scandinavia that I've seen that, in both in books and in person, that are just fascinating pieces that the Vikings did. Very intricate carving.
Well, about anything can be carved too. I mean, it can be a functional object or it can be just a work of art.
Absolutely.
I say just a work of art, but it could be a work of art just for enjoyment's purposes and the beauty of the art. But also I've seen wood carving on all kinds of things, and we all have. So it's something that can be both functional and just ornamental.
It can be functional, it can be art, and it can be decorative. It really can cover any three of those areas, and you find people in clubs around the country
that can do all of those.
Can do all of them, and a lot of them specialize. And a lot of people specialize in birds, very intricate bird carving. And most of that is done with power carving. This particular piece is power carved. My personal preference is hand carving, and the other two pieces I showed you are hand carving using chisels and gouges and knives.
Now, we were talking about that a second ago now, but the last time you were here, you brought a whole bunch of tools with you. And so at the second Saturday opening of your exhibit, you're going to have some things, at least, to demonstrate to people what carving's about, right?
That's right.
And to kind of give people an overview of the whole concept. So if you want to kind of get an up-close look and actually see the work and interact with Wayne and with Benny, you'll be able to see them actually showing you what the pieces were made with and how they were done. Now, this machine carving, you said, is called a what? The machine that does this
Oh,
big old...
now that you asked me, I forget. It's a motor that usually hangs on a hook, and you have a cable, and then you have a power head on it that it's electric, that has different types of heads. Some are diamond, and some are different types of steel, and they basically carve your piece for you. And some definitions of carving, you just take away whatever wood doesn't look like what you want to carve.
There you go.
It's really easy.
So it's kind of like an overgrown Dremel.
Yeah, that particular tool is, and then we also use more refined tools. People do use Dremels, and they work fine. And for the finer, like if you were carving this with power, you would use something like a Dremel tool.
Right.
And there are more expensive, more refined tools. NSK, which is a Japanese tool, they make one that I actually have. But that people do carve with that. Now, my problem with that is it creates a lot of dust, and I wear hard contact lenses, and I'm allergic to dust anyway, so I really don't enjoy it.
So you prefer the hand carving?
I really prefer the hand carving. Now, it's quite a lengthy process. Power carving is a lot quicker. There's no question about that. I have a relief carving that I might bring. It's either going to be finished or in process that I'll bring on the 13th. And I've really been working on that. I was thinking, I think 6 or 8 months now.
Wow.
Probably 7 or 8 months, because I haven't been really dedicated to carving. I absolutely have another life.
And let's talk about that briefly just a minute. Now, one of Wayne's things that keeps him busy is working with the Arts Council on keeping our galleries staffed. He is our official coordinator of the what we call our gallery volunteers, which is a group of, I don't know, there've probably been a total of about 35 people that have been flowing through your list, and right now you have maybe 20, 25 people. But these folks volunteer time, and you train them, and they come in, and what do they do?
Well, the responsibilities is to keep the gift shop, which is part of our gallery operation, open, and to have the gallery open while they're there as well. And so they come in, and if they're artists, they have things they want to work on. Sometimes they'll sit there and work on things, depending on how busy we are on any given day, and one never knows. But it's primarily to be there to open it for the 3.5-hour shifts that we run on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday now, from 11 to 2:30, and then 2:30 to 6.
Right.
And to answer people's questions they might have about the Art Council, about the artwork, and there's always information there that will aid you in that. And to handle the purchases, if somebody wants to purchase a piece of art from any of the shows or from the gift shop. And that's the function. It's not really a difficult job at all. It just takes a little time, and the Arts Council is a nonprofit organization, and they rely on volunteers.
That's right.
And as a retiree, I thought I was going to be, I wondered how busy I'd be. Well, I find that I don't know how I ever had time to work. You probably have from a lot of retirees, but that's one of the reasons. And we certainly are in the need right now from some further volunteers.
That's right. So each of the volunteers...
I think our really active group of volunteers at the moment is more like 8 or 10.
Of the hardcore, really do it a lot.
Yeah, really. Yeah. And typically they will work 1 shift or 2 shifts a month. So we don't ask anybody to take it on as a full-time job or every week or anything like that. Although if you want to, you're certainly welcome to. But it's a fun group, and we get together once a month. We have a meeting there at the Arts Council and talk about what's going on during the month, and you get to meet other people who are volunteers in the community as well as artists, and that's always fun and interesting. So I would urge anybody that has an inclination to do that to give us a call.
Definitely do that. We would love to see our volunteer group grow long enough and big enough to where we could be open more days of the week. That's kind of the overriding goal, is to be open more days of the week. But with the structure of the Blue Ridge Art Space building, it's very hard for me to be in the office and have the gift shop open, because I can't really be in 2 places in the building at the same time. And so it really is needed that we have somebody out there in the gift shop. And so so we really urge you to be part of the group. It's a very lively, fun group of folks. They're great folks. We've really had a wonderful time with them. and I've been really pleased to get to know some of them more personally and to develop a lot of friendships through this group. So I encourage you to be part of it. It's one of the many ways that you can be part of the arts in Watauga County through the Blue Ridge Art Space. We have workshops and classes. We have exhibits. We have 4 exhibits every month. We, of course, at our second Saturday opening also have 6 demonstrations in each of the classrooms, and sometimes more. And we usually have live music and a lot of other really cool things going on. And stay tuned. You're going to learn more later about our fence project. Great way for you to have a piece of yourself involved in Blue Ridge Art Space on a permanent basis. So get in touch with us. Watch our website, watauga-arts.org. We're also big into Facebook, primarily because it's a really quick and easy way of putting information out. And so you're encouraged to like us on Facebook if you're into Facebook. So that you can keep up with us and just basically just come around. It's a great place to be. It's at 377 Shadowline Drive, which is at the corner of State Farm and Shadowline Drive. And Wayne or one of his friends from the Gallery Volunteers will probably be there to greet you. So we hope that you'll be a part of it. Wayne, thank you for sharing. We're looking forward to this exhibit. I'm very excited about seeing your work and seeing Benny's work. So it'll be a wonderful chance to come. So be sure and join us.
Watauga Arts Council with your host, Cherry Johnson, serving arts in Watauga County for more than 30 years.